All right. Hello to everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys. Saw that we have a new member. I think she upgraded. So Lynn upgraded to be a chief. Now the Chiefs, we have our own Discord. So if you guys are interested as members, as Chiefs, one of our main things is that I created a Discord for the Chiefs so we could talk a little bit outside of comments and stuff like that. So I thought that'd be a really cool thing for us to have. So if you're interested, the Chiefs Discord is posted in there if you want to be a member of the channel. Now, tonight, not the easiest night. I did my last video. I felt like I I was trying my best to give you guys a really, really good outline of like really what happened and then give you my thoughts. But maybe I felt a little bit more like reading my notes and then trying to explain to you how I felt was a little bit more um, just not fully released, if that makes any sense. I felt like I wasn't fully able to express myself. So tonight I thought that we'd go over episode 2 of the documentary and my thoughts in depth together. I wrote down my notes still, but I think it'd be a lot easier because I'm going to take my time with each point that I made, everything that I noticed, and the things that I want to talk about more with you guys live. And we can kind of discuss these things together with your comments and stuff like that. So we are going to jump right in because I have a lot of thoughts and I wrote them all down. So if you see me doing this, I am just checking my notes. We got hi from Wichita, Kansas, Roxanne. Love it. I went to school and in Wichita. Love the Chiefs, but I am not great at talking sports. So just so you guys know, I named one of the tiers Warriors of our members and then Chiefs. So the Chiefs is just above that. So that's what that means if we're talking about that. It's okay if you guys aren't sports people. That's totally fine. That's fine. We'll get into that at some point. We'll talk sports together. Now, I am going to go over this episode in depth. Like I said, it is full of really, really hard subjects. So I think there's a part of me that's a little antsy to talk more about it just because it's an emotional thing. It's a flood of feelings. And, it's not easy. It's not an easy episode to talk about, especially with just how it starts. So if you've watched it, excuse me, if you've watched the documentary, what really happens is it's kind of built in a timeline, but what's hard about it is it feels like to me it's like this. It's here's this, and you're trying to build the story, and I get from a storytelling perspective and an outside perspective what they're trying to do. My biggest problem is that it's to me there's an inauthentic feeling, and the reason being is because it's not grounded in my family. It's grounded in Lori. So that's the problem. And we've talked about that before. So we're going to get into my notes here. I'm not going to screen share anything. I'm just going to read you guys my subpoints and we'll go into depth about them. But real quick, we've got Cheryl. Hi, Colby. Glad I caught a live. You've come a long way. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi to you. Good to see you guys. Carrie Ann says hello, Colby and Kelsey. If you're in the chat, I'm glad I finally caught a live. You guys are here. We've got Megan here. Hi, Megan. All right, you guys ready? Let's jump right in. So the start of the episode is continuing on from the first episode. So I'll touch on that real quick. The first episode really goes into my mom's past. It touches on me being born. I don't even remember at this point now. It touches on Tylee being born. I remember that. It goes into some details, but it's really building up the Lori story. That's the first episode of this documentary, is really diving back, talking about her marriages, her past. Then it jumps into what happens with my dad. So to me, it just kind of like jumps from point to point to point, and you're kind of you have me narratively setting you up for the next thing. Correct. So like they're using my voice and my part to do that. And then they're also using other people. Now, I told you guys on one of our last lives, some of the people in this documentary should not be in it. Very clearly should not be in it because of their not involvement into my family and how fake they truly are. in when it comes to what they've been talking about and their stuff that they've put out there. So it's very hard to watch that. It hurts because the whole point, it was supposed to be grounded. So jumping into the first thing that happens is it talks immediately about what happened with my dad. Every time I bring it up, it hurts my stomach. It makes me feel uneasy because I just remember it like it was yesterday. So they get into that, explaining it. And I think the worst part is what happened next was you see my mom not caring at all. And I'm seeing my sister standing there with my mom talking about the incident. And I just can't even wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around the whole unfolding of that situation. And um it really hurts. It's really hard to watch. I can't imagine what's going through Tylee's mind, and I just want to reach to the screen and save her. Um, but I can't. So watching my mom though not care at all says a lot. And that's the hardest part about watching the documentary is even though I don't want it to be the Lori narrative, those parts are the truth. I know that that's what happened, but to see it hurts in a different way. Um, then you kind of just jump from that point of them showing what actually happened from the footage of the police coming to panning to what happened when I got there. So really you just get this well-rounded account basically of multiple different perspectives and what happened to me. My account is hard to listen to because I lived it because it reminds me of exactly what that day was like and I can remember everything. Then you end up having that conversation where you have Kelsey giving her piece of it as well. And yeah, I remember it deeply. And so it's really hard. And in my opinion, the way that it's framed is you're kind of just getting these moments, but you can't feel the impact. And I don't expect other people to feel the impact of it because it didn't happen to you guys. But like it just to me feels like, okay, we're just brushing through. We're just brushing through. And that's hard for me because every part of that was so hard. And it's just like it is hard to tell that story because you can't understand the impact of what it was like every moment. So that's really what hurts the most though is going back to that time and seeing it, what happened with them right after the incident and right after they did that, and how calm it was and how there was just nothing there. And then I remember getting that call and I remember forcing myself over there. I remember thinking like, I need to go over and check on you guys. I kept saying that and they were kind of brushing me off like, it's fine. You don't need to come over. And I was like, no, I'm going to come over. I'd never been to their house yet. They'd only been there I don't even know if they've been there a couple weeks. So you have to understand this is all moving in extremely quickly. And then, this whole day my head's reeling and I get there and I have that moment with Tylee and I don't know. I don't know. So I told you guys we're going to take our time with this one. It's still hard to talk about. And I just can't help but wonder what was going through Tylee's mind. Yeah. I think that's what hurts me the most. It hurts me the most to think about her. And JJ. So, we cut from my account and what Kelsey was thinking. And Kelsey has a really deep perspective and a completely different perspective that is her and her own. And I feel like we didn't really get to see that. And that's something she could share if she ever wanted to. And I leave that to her. That's her perspective of what those events were like. But she had a bad feeling about it too. But I don't think that we could really talk about that in that time. And there's a lot of growth and stuff that happened where we could talk about those things, but she had a completely different feeling. And I was just caught in the ring. I remember like like when people in movies, like a thing, like explosion goes off and it like rings their ears and they're like kind of out of it. I feel like that's what that moment was like. From that point, from hearing that to hearing what happened to him for real at that house and not knowing what to do and not knowing how to feel or react. And then next thing, nobody there seems to react. Um, and no, there's just no reaction. And I'm sitting there like, I'm going crazy. I'm like, what, how in the world is everybody calm? And I remember having that conversation with my mom in the backyard. And I remember just, just stone cold, just stone cold. Um, Almost like it was like, oops, I dropped the egg. Like it was almost like that. It was almost like she didn't even have a reaction or care. And so I felt like the oddball out of what was going on in that situation because I was absolutely freaking out. So that was hard for me to feel really alone in that moment as well. So whew. We've got a new member. Welcome. Warriors come out to play. Oh yeah, sorry. I need a little break from this moment. Okay, so then next thing and I'm kind of giving you guys, I'm sure you've probably seen it. If you haven't, I'm just kind of giving a account of how the documentary episode went. Okay. So the next thing they do is they talk about when my family left. And I remember that day very well. It was very soon after everything happened. There's a lot of question marks. I had really not really talked to my mom up to that point, and then she's like, okay, well, we're moving. And I didn't know she was moving out of state. And then I asked her, where are you going? And then she said somewhere cold. So then there's all these question marks, right? And it was the most confusing time ever. And all I wanted is for my siblings to have somewhat of a normal life. Um, they needed that. And I prayed that there could be a life outside of what had happened. And so I remember my mom bringing them to my work, and I got this pathetic goodbye that day. It was just pathetic. And it's just so hard to know I had a last moment with them. Like you could never imagine that that's your last moment with somebody, and I know I preach this a lot to you guys, but like I think it's a big deal to just really love people that are around you, your family, your friends, things like that, because you just don't know if this your last time. So I remember it very well. They pulled up in the car. JJ hopped out. My mom hopped out. Tylee was crying, stayed inside the car. And I don't think it was more than 5 minutes. They came basically to say they're going to come back soon. And, it just felt like, I don't want to say the word normal, but it just didn't feel, you could never imagine that was the last time I'd see him. So that's what's hard for me, because these moments I can flash back to and remember. So the documentary takes us down that moment, which I think it kind of skipped over. I don't remember if I told that in an interview. I don't remember if I said what that moment was like in the interview, but obviously it's very edited down. The documentary is going to narratively, tell its own story. It wants to talk about Lori. So a lot of that stuff that's detailed or like more of those real moments, I think was pushed out of that. Then it jumps to me and Kelsey. So in that time, the reason why, so it's a little bit of jumping around, right? Because there's things going forward, but at the same time, they're trying to go back and tell the story. And so it jumps to what Kelsey and I were going through in that time. And I think that was what was so hard, is how much misunderstanding there is in a case like this, and then how much misunderstanding there is when it comes to people jumping into a narrative like this and hearing all these different things. Like we talked about media, people on Facebook and all this stuff, you're hearing all these facts and all these channels and all this information is coming out and nobody knows what's going on. And so it's just really easy to assume things. So it jumps into like what it was like for me and Kelsey, how hard it was during her entire pregnancy, what it was like in the early part of that year, and then us having our first child, and then all, my mom and Charles's breakup happening, and then falling into what was going on with him outside of that, what was going on with her outside of that, and then what we were trying to do, which was just, start a family. Kelsey was what, 20, 21, barely, and I'm 22. So you're a young family, and all this drama's happening, and we're just like so focused. And Riley's screaming her head off every single night. Riley's in horrible pain 24/7 and literally doesn't sleep. And we're just trying to like live our lives somehow, some way. And there's all this other stuff going on and all this drama. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like that was the biggest part for me is like I felt like it was drama. So I stayed away from it. I stayed away, really barely saw my mom that whole time. And this is before Charles. And just really felt like because of their whole marriage falling apart, I didn't want anything to do with it. And that was a big reason why a lot of the stuff happened is I pulled away from my family in that time, especially because I was upset with the whole situation. I was upset from what I thought was happening. And I was upset that I thought that, my mom and Charles's marriage was going to end and our family was going to be broken. But on top of it, I had to step up and figure out how to be a man and how to take care of my own family while all this other stuff was going on. And I thought it was drama. That's just really what it was. So that's kind of what jumps into next to it is it jumps into Tylee and I's text later. It talks about, then it jumps into like my mom's podcast and it's trying to paint, in my opinion, the documentary is trying to paint my mom the whole time. You're trying to character build her the whole entire time. So that's kind of what I see from it. Now I know that my perspective has changed over the years, especially now watching it back this time. My perspective has changed a lot, but it's a lot to process, right? But in my opinion, the narrative is all really pegged to one major thing, and that goes back to Lori. So, yeah, it's hard. It jumps into where Charles was at that whole time, and that's really hard for me too because again, like I said, I did jump out of that situation. I was just I pulled back from everybody. And you just can't change what you can't change. But I would do anything obviously to change what happened. And I wish that things were different. But I lived with the regret for that for a long time until I realized I had to let it go. So it's not easy to see it. It brings that pain up and it brings the loss up for me all over again. And like I said, it's just it deeply hurts me. All of it does. Just give me a second. Okay. Then jumping in from there, it jumps into John Matthias talking about light and dark. So this episode presents the whole ranking system. It presents who was on it. Kelsey's on it. My sister's on it. Just the most absurd, ridiculous thing in the world that a human being could say from a Christian, let's use that word very loosely here, but someone who says something about Jesus or mentions Jesus at all, that doesn't make up their own religion, to say, oh, this person's a light person, this person's a dark person. And then you start talking about multiple lives. So the episode starts to present this idea that there's multiple lives and that there's light and dark spirits and the whole zombie thing. So that's what the narrative of the story is. Now, again, this I understand is important information, but you need to remember that this was supposed to be a family's story, and this was only supposed to be more of a segment or like touched on, not the whole narrative. And as you're going through this episode, all of a sudden it's about Chad. It's about him. Then it jumps to what happened with Brandon. And I haven't talked about these things. This is the first time we're talking about a lot of this stuff. This is all new for me to open up and talk about. But it shows me the scale of how bad it was and how many people were affected. And you cannot sit here and believe that something like that happened. And I believe that he was completely saved by God, because that whole situation is trying to take someone's father off the planet for your own, take all these people off the planet for your own narrative is horrible and it's sick. And it just shows the evil intention of them. They had evil intentions. And it's hard because man, just to know like what could have happened if he was gone, and the fact that kids would have no father, and that, I lost my dad, I lost my siblings, like these people didn't care. And you just see from their actions, they had an agenda. And it's just so hard. I guess it took me a long time to accept how evil the agenda was. And that's what the story does present to you, is the reality of that part. So it's just hard, man. It's hard. I'm sorry. I know I'm not reading you guys' chats as much. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to make sure that we touch on everything, because I don't want you guys to feel like you're missing out of anything that I have felt or thought what I wrote down. So, let me take a little break for 2 seconds, because this is a lot. This is kind of like a train, man. This is hard to talk about. But I appreciate you guys. Lulu's here. You're doing great. Thank you, Lulu. Sue says, I love and respect you so much, Colby. I've been following this case from day one. I'm happy you're not doing well. Thank you, Sue. Thank you. And B says, to carry out an evil agenda by someone who you trust is shattering. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There's nothing like that. Betrayal. Nothing. Lynn says, Colby, I want you to know that you are an amazing young man. You have taught this grandmother so much. I want you to know I bought your book and I'm amazed at your strength in the worst times. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate you saying that. I really prayed that the book would be helpful to other people. Megan says, all the feelings are coming back for me too. I can't imagine how you're feeling. I'm with you. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, it's hard. Anybody who even lived through this stuff, it's literally trauma to talk about. It's traumatizing, but it's also healthy. There's something healthy about it, and you get to get your stuff out. I just bought the book also. Thank you guys for supporting the book. Seriously, I appreciate that. I'm really glad that it's helpful for you guys. I really pray that that's what it was. I prayed that it would be helpful for people. All right, we're going to jump back in to some notes. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. God bless from Phoenix. Thank you, Norma. Bless you guys. All right, let's jump back in. My other note I put in here, which I think is funny to me, is how many characters are in this thing. I say that with, I guess, the most respect I possibly can. There's some wild cards thrown into this documentary. I'm not going to say names. We talked about this before. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's, if anything, some of these people thrive off of the clout. So we're not going to talk about that. It's frustrating, to say the least. I think their perspectives to the narrative are so skewed and so inauthentic that they don't belong there. And you can, not like that comment, but it's the reality. Their participation in it is inauthentic, and it serves only them. And that's hard to watch when you are, for me, you guys, I feel like you can see, like, this is how I am talking to you, is how I wanted it to be presented throughout the whole thing. This is just a piece of my heart to you. I'm just talking to you from my heart, and I'm just talking to you straight up. This is how it was supposed to be presented, was a very raw way, very different. And I think it would have been one of the most groundbreaking things to do this story correctly and honor and love the people, and rather than talk about the big moments and that's it, the flashbang. You just didn't get any of that. So it's just still a big deal to me. It just really hurts to watch that. But some people just genuinely do not belong in this documentary. They do not belong. I think they know who they are, but I'm not going to say it. It just hurts a lot because it just further shows how much they did not care to tell the correct narrative. They did not care to talk about that other stuff. It was about, let's get the viewer, whatever their main goal is, whether they're trying to make money, whether they're trying to do this or that. It's just they don't care. Whew. Brandon says Colby is an amazing person. Thank you, Brandon. Chrissy said, I'm in the hospital, but through the years, I've grown to love and protect you and Kelsey. So I wanted to be here to support you guys as long as I can stay awake. Chrissy, I hope you're doing okay in the hospital. We're concerned about you. So take care of yourself. We'll be praying for you. We hope you're doing okay. And I'm glad you could be here tonight. But if you need to get some rest, you get some rest. Take care of yourself. Okay, so I'm like I said, I'm going through my notes right now. The whole zombie thing, the light and dark still doesn't even make sense to me, right? Like they present it in like a perfect example is so in this time you're getting texts back and forth between Chad and my mom, Alex and my mom, not enough I could say about that, but her whole Z's thing, that's where it's from. It's from the documentary. They have her texts talking about Z's, and she tried to tell me that her iCloud never said anything about Z's. She must honestly think that I am just an absolute idiot, right? Because we had our interview. So watching this now and watching what she was saying to people is really frustrating for me personally, because I just talked to her in that interview, and in that interview, she tried to retcon all the stuff she said to other people, everything she was doing, and tried to tell me this fake story that's so disrespectful. It's not even funny. But when you go back to this whole light and dark thing and the limbo thing, it reminds me of another thing I made a video about pop culture, how I think it influenced Chad and my mom because they're both pop culture people and movie people, from what I understand. From what I saw, there's a movie. This is the only movie I know that my mom took me to go see this movie with my friends. And in that movie, it's called The Lovely Bones. And in that movie, the girl is in limbo, basically after, I don't want to spoil the movie, but she's in limbo. Okay. You can look it up. I don't want to spoil the movie, but it is what it is. She's in limbo in this movie. She passes away. I'm going to say it like that. Don't want to ruin it. But that's where I feel like these things are crazy, because I can trace back when I hear the things. The first thing that comes to my mind is that. And I know my mom watched that movie. So I'm like, okay, that's just weird though, that my mind immediately connects to movies too, because I saw it with her. And now it's being applied to, in this case, Tammy. So now they're using this idea that, and again, I don't want to get into Tammy because I want to have all the respect in the world for her. And she fully deserves respect. So I'm not going to bring her up. And I can't believe what happened to her. But in this movie, they talk about the limbo thing, and the person is not actually in heaven or anywhere. They're like literally stuck and they're not able to move forward. So that's what Chad presents, this idea that people get in limbo and that they need to move on. But it still doesn't make sense. And the whole light and dark thing still doesn't make sense because it's made up. I can't find the basis of light and dark. I mean, the whole basis of the Bible is light versus dark and overcoming and all those things of that nature. So I guess you could really say anything kind of, it has the odds of good and evil if it comes to pop culture. But even watching that just remind me of that movie. And it makes me think more and more and more about how much of, we've talked about this before, the book of Chad is so easy to trace out, in my opinion. I feel like you can really reach over and kind of see where these ideas came from. And it's just so, whatever you want to call the word is. It's ridiculous, right? But in that movie, the girl who passes away is in limbo. Okay. That's the reason I felt that way. Then it goes back into the timeline. So the documentary moves into a timeline for the police looking for my siblings. So then it like introduces the idea of what it was like when the police got involved, the phone calls, and all this stuff is going down at this time. So now, Kay had called. They're looking for Tylee and JJ. All this stuff is going on. The next thing that I think is so weird, Kay, I don't know if I pick up on very different things. I picked up in her back and forth with Lieutenant Ball, which, by the way, I love Lieutenant Ball. I think he's incredible. I think everybody who's in all of the departments are incredible, and that I have a unbelievable amount of love and respect for all those people. But he's talking to her, and I know her, right? I'm trying to give you guys an understanding of what it's like to know someone, think about someone you know very well, and hearing them in a situation where they're trying to lie to people. And the weirdest thing she says to me, it rang out to me very, very strongly. They're asking about the question. They're asking about all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, she goes, I know I look suspect, but I'm a good person. Oh, no, she said, I know I look like a suspect, but I'm a good person. What an odd thing to say to anybody. She said, I don't want it. People keep looking for me and I just don't want to be found. And I know I look like a suspect, but I'm a good person. How do you look like a suspect? Right? Like, that's just such a weird thing to say to somebody. I don't know. So that's such a weird comment to make, right? What an odd thing to say to anybody. So that's what it is. Next thing, let me go into my notes real quick. So what that brought into me, if you guys don't know, I think Chrissy just said, who said that? My mom said I know I look like a suspect, but I'm a good person, to Lieutenant Ball when he questioned her in the documentary. He comes up, he's questioning, he's asking about, she's playing off she doesn't know Chad. She acts like he's Alex's friend. She said Chad is Alex's friend because Chad was at her house. Mind you, and this is what's so hard for me to stomach. The kids are gone. They're all hanging out in this little group and spinning and hanging out in each other's houses and doing all this back and forth crossover stuff. And it blows my mind. It makes me so genuinely sick to think that there's so much going on in this time and they just do not care at all. They're having the time of their lives. They're having whatever type of parties. They're hanging out at each other's houses. They're just going back and forth. Everything's chill. Crazy stuff is going on at this time, right? But what an odd thing to say to Lieutenant Ball from her, to say, I know I look like I'm a suspect, but I'm really a good person. Just an odd thing to come out of her mouth. But whatever. That's kind of what's whatever. But then, like I said, per our interview, why are you lying to it's so crazy. Like, this is a perfect example. I said it in the documentary and I said it to you guys before, but she had a lie for each person. So she goes, well, Melanie Gibb has JJ and they're at Frozen 2 today. And then she tells someone else, she tried to tell everybody different things. And obviously not everybody's getting together in a group and saying, oh, well, Lori told me this and Lori told me this. Like, she's just telling people at different times, different things. Right. So that's what's so hard about all that, is her telling them that JJ's not there. And then Melanie Gibb calls, actually in the next part of the documentary, that's the next thing they set up, is she calls Lori and, puts her on the spot and says, why'd you tell the police where she is? And the first thing she says is, I just needed to use, and then stops herself and says, I just needed to say something so I wouldn't have to tell him where he really is. And then Melanie says clearly, are they okay? And I cannot tell you how hard this hit me because of all the jail phone calls that I had with her, where I asked this question directly, deeply. And I said, is my family alive on earth, walking around, breathing, everything? And she would say yes. So I asked more directly than you could ever be. No way for her to dance around this. This was before I knew what happened to them. And she told me yes. So that question, when she asked her that, is JJ okay? And she says, yes, he's very happy, kills me, because now we go back to the interview we had. How could you possibly be, continuing down this road if what really happened was, and like you said in your interview, that Tylee did it all? Because everything you're saying is so spread out like butter. It doesn't make any sense, and it never will. Right. But even for her to pitch that to me, she acts like I don't have a brain or can't see things for what they are. So I don't want to say I'm interested in what she thinks because that's a lie. The truth is like it's just crazy to me to think that you think I would buy your bullcrap, that I would buy it. It's sick and it's ridiculous. All right, we got a few more points on here, guys. I'm gonna take a minute, say what's up to you guys. Let me read your guys' chats, and then we'll go back into our points. We got a lot of other things I want to bring up, but I just wrote down every thought and sub point that I had for the documentary because, yeah, this is just a lot better, I feel like, than the other video because I wanted to get more into detail about some of this stuff. Proud of you, young man. Thank you, Lou. Good to see you. This channel helps everyone learn about undue influence. Sue says, I get why you feel that way, Colby. It seemed like she took you for a fool. Yeah. Tell us about your second helmet. Did I miss a story? Which one are you talking about? I rearranged for you guys. Let's go back to a real high note real quick on this emotional roller coaster of tonight. I rearranged for you guys. I put a shelf here. You guys know I like to do fun things for you. So I rearranged. I feel like I do it almost every time we do a video just for fun, just to do something new, see what looks better. This was up here above BCJ. BCJ kind of has a permanent spot, so he's not moving anywhere. We got some pictures up here. I just try to make it look cool for you guys always. The white one I put on last time. This is our Kintsugi, guys. This is our Kintsugi Storm. What's it called? Guys, no, not on live. Stormtrooper helmet. This is our Kintsugi one. The reason I got this one specifically is because it has the Kintsugi in it, which is basically representative of the entire point of the podcast, which is putting yourself back together and having your scars. So that's why that one is such a big deal to me. The boba was up here in the corner, and then I put some pictures back up. Just try to make it. I like to I wanted it to be cool for you guys. But if you guys see in any of our videos, I mix it up for you guys every video pretty much just to put different things. So, but you guys ready to get back into it? There are 2 early Christmas presents up here already. We do not wait for a thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to click off of that, babe. She gave me 2 of these up here. Guys, it's really hard to those up there. The figures up there, they look dope. So we can't wait for a gosh dang thing, but she knows I love to decorate the desk. So that's what we did. All right, here we go. You guys know I'm a Star Wars nerd. So that's just what it is. If you've seen the channel before, you'll see. Beth says, Anakin Skywalker moved from light to dark. It was a slow transition across time. Once he turned dark, he was no longer Anakin, but Darth Vader. That's a good point. I've used, that's a good point, Beth. I've used that reference as what I said. It felt like was like watching a transition of someone you knew turn into something different. So it's like watching that. That's the best example I have, is watching somebody who you knew completely go into a completely different person. Is Anakin turning to Vader, right? Now, let's get back into it real quick. I got a few more thoughts for you guys. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's been an emotional roller coaster, but I'm glad you guys are here. All right, so my next point I wrote down. The next part of the kind of narrative story is getting back to where Kelsey and I were during this time. And what was happening is we were being bombarded by the media. So not only do we have, obviously the cops coming, their questions, what's going on, everybody we're talking to behind the scenes. And then all of a sudden we start having the media show up at our house. And I'm talking about with a camera, with microphones in hand. Like the second you open the door, you're going to be on camera. Like imagine that at, a young and at a young age. And then on top of that, they just are there for what? You don't even know what they're going to ask you. Right. And so the worst part is like, they would literally stick. I remember we watched them do this. They put a stick in our door because they showed up, they put a stick in our door, and then they put it in there very strategically so that way if we left or had any foot traffic, the stick would fall out of the door. I watched the person do it, and then when I opened the door, I saw the stick. So stuff like that shows you that there was a lot of already sensationalism and people wanted to talk to us about it. And again, not interested in doing that because I don't even know what's going on. So why are we going to have this whole entire conversation, right off the bat and have you be at my front door at my apartment with my family in the room trying to come to my house and ask me questions on camera? That's just not something I would do to somebody else. And I get that that's how some, news outlets and media works, but that to me is number one beyond disrespectful because, we're going through something really hard and we don't know what's going on. And then next thing I would never put somebody in that position. And so you have to understand what that moment was like. That was like it's a turnoff. I don't know. I don't think any of you would like that. If somebody showed up at your house, literally camera in hand, prepared to talk to you about the hardest thing going on in your life at that time. So that was a big turn off for me. Now, I can get into media all the time. There's so many things I could say about it. We're going to keep jumping on to the next thing though. The next thing it jumps into, the documentary goes into Alex dying. I did not know the timeline until I watched the documentary, to be honest with you. I guess he died earlier in the month of December. I found out on, I think it was the 19th or the 20th, whatever day The Rise of Skywalker came out. I think it was the initial day we went to go see that movie that night. And it just kind of brushes over it. And I remember I felt like I remember the initial shock of just like, whoa, like what do you mean? Like what's going on? Like I remember being at the movie and I was sitting there thinking like, wow, my dad was killed by Alex. And the next thing you know, he's dead not too long after. And, my mom had cut her phone off at that point and everything is just in chaos. And I remember the movie was like the one thing I was looking forward to be honest with you. Like it was the one thing I was even thinking would be fun or like enjoyable about life at that point. And then we get home from the movie and that's when Kelsey comes out at like midnight. It was the first time we stayed up to midnight in so long. We were young parents again. It was really hard to get sleep, but we had stayed up past like 9 o'clock at that point. And she came out and showed me the article that they had dropped about Tylee and JJ missing and my mom being married to Chad and them had living in Rexburg and they were missing as well. And it was like all of that on your plate at once. So I mentioned to you guys a few times, but I can't put into words what that moment was like, what that day was like. It's just hard. I mean, I really genuinely can't tell you what that felt like. Yeah. This next part's hard to talk about because I remember it very vividly. One of the next thing the documentary jumps into is when they first searched Chad's house. And I remember praying that Tylee and JJ weren't there because I was scared of what they were going to find, but I was holding out hope. And I had a dream that night. Oh, give me a sec. I remember having a dream that night that Tylee was under the snow. And I remember waking up and being in complete disarray. And then I remember just trying everything I could to not believe that that's true. I just thought, I wrote it off. And I thought, no, there's no way. That's just worst case scenario. That's just me playing tricks. That's me playing tricks on myself. I'm tripping, right? Like you just tell yourself like, no, I'm tripping. Like there's no way. That's not real. That's not what's happening. Like you rationalize to save yourself. And I just remember that dream still. It was really, really hard because I had so many dreams about them. Like we'll get into that. And that's a different conversation for a different time, but the dreams and the things that you can think of in your brain while you're when you're going through hard stuff and what your brain's doing is another world. It's like stepping into a gate of hell in a sense, for me, because I had a lot of really, really, really hard dreams. But I remember playing that off in my mind saying, there's just no way. That was always my rationale. There's just no way it's worst case scenario. There's just no way. It's not possible. Um, but yeah, that was just a really hard, really, really hard time because I dreamed about it probably every night. And I'm not exaggerating. I don't think I went a night without dreaming about something to do with it. And then past that, you cut in the documentary to them being found in Kauai. What hurts the most about two things. Number one, opening up about Kauai was a big deal for our family because number one, it's beautiful. But when you're on an island like that, it really sucks away the outside world. And in that outside world being sucked away, our family, I felt like got closer in a very different way. There wasn't as much distraction of you call it the mainland when you live in Kauai or Hawaii. The mainland's very different from Kauai. Specifically, how Kauai is that it's an island. It's very still pure to itself. There's a lot to do, but at the same time, there's not as much going on. It's not a hustle bustle place. It's like the earth stands still there. And it's at first I was uncomfortable when we moved there because I'm like, where is the city? Like what is this? This is all just like green pastures and this ocean. And I was like, if you're not a beach person, you're not gonna like it here, right? Like I was just an 18-year-old kid, right? When we moved there. But I felt like it hurts the most because there's just so much special family time spent in Hawaii. We really connected in a different way. I've so many of some of my best family memories were there. And it wasn't about people don't understand, like it wasn't about the fact that Hawaii is beautiful and of course it is. Hawaii is gorgeous. Like if you ever get a chance to go there, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet Earth, in my opinion. But it wasn't like, oh, I remember every moment of this beauty. It was like, no, our family was just felt different there. You know, it felt different. And I just felt like there was something like JJ developed so much there. Like JJ was nonverbal. I could barely have JJ. JJ barely looked at me in the eyes, even though we were close. We played all the time. And he just like became like so, he just grew so much. And like me and his relationship deepened. And me and Tylee's relationship changed a lot more because like I was home and she's there. And like, I just felt like everything about that time was special. And so when they went there and they went to Kauai Beach, that's where they found them, which was a very special place. Even in the documentary, you see a video. We're going to Kauai Beach on Christmas Day. We went there for Thanksgiving. This was just this little tiny resort off of, down on the beach, beautiful place. And there was just so much family memory there. So for her, this is just, you just have to put this in perspective. For her to do what she did to my family, then take Peter Griffin and go to the beach where we were was like the biggest middle fingers ever. Right. And again, at this point, if you zoom back, I'm not even like aware that what's happened to Tylee and JJ, but even seeing Nate chase them down and seeing them at Kauai Beach and knowing they're married was such a stab in the throat, whatever you want to call it. It was horrible. And it was the most unbelievable, just desecrating feeling, right? It's like you know exactly what you're doing. That's intentional evil. You could have stayed anywhere else. You could have been anywhere else, and you went there where our family had Christmases and Thanksgivings and time together. You went there specifically. So that's what hurts. Sorry, guys. I brought back to Peter Griffin, but that's the best explanation. I'm not saying his name. Then you just cut to, when they found her, you cut to her arrest, and they kind of build up the tension to get you into the next segment of, to the next episode. They want to push you to the next episode. They want to push their narrative to the next episode. and that's where they leave you. So I'll give you my final thoughts on this episode, or we just jump into some chats and what you guys have been talking to. I'm sorry if I missed a lot of your chats. I'm sorry about that. But um, I just what's so hard again is I understand a lot of this is important things. I understand a lot of this was, the truth of the story, but at the same time, you completely brushed over like the whole reason I shared even the pictures and the videos is because I wanted them to be real people. I wanted you to see what it was like. Like I did those vlogs with my family because those were the moments, what it was like, you know? And like you just get you get this tidbit to kind of build the Lori story. That's what it's about. It's about jumping to the narrative of Lori, the catering to that, catering to Chad. So the whole time we're really focused on them rather than focused on Tylee, JJ, Charles. And again, I didn't do the documentary to talk about me, but you don't know anything about our family. You don't know about my brothers, my stepbrothers. It just it's just a brush. It's a brush through the whole thing. So I leave that with you when it comes to the media stuff, when it comes to all the stuff that we've talked about. This is what I mean by it. Um, watching it for me is hard, but it's even harder knowing what it was supposed to be. And what's even worse is they removed my faith completely. Like I talked about what it was like going through that time. I was trying to be like, of course, I know I'm not a filmmaker. I know I'm not this and that, but at the same time, I know somewhat of like what I wanted to be shown about my family and about what I was going through. And then on top of it, what it was like growing up and what it was like for what I felt like it was like for my family members, and then bringing in people that knew them to build that narrative. It just supposed to, at its core, it was supposed to be a family's story. And it turned into the Chad and Lori story. And we brought in a bunch of people who were not involved, who have thrown themselves into the limelight, who put themselves in that position to victimize themselves and make it about them rather than about what it was. And we catered to a story that was sensationalism at the end of the day. And it hurts. Again, I know I tell you this a lot, but this is why we are here. This is why you guys are on this live right now, is because this is what's driving me forward from this point, is that we're just not doing that anymore. And that is not the narrative. And we're not playing that game. So, whew, what a breakdown. What a breakdown. Let's see what Jenny said. Jenny says, like you said, it made you want to tell your story yourself in your way, but I'm grateful for your channel. I'm glad that it brought you here, but it was wrong of them to do that and use you and your fam. Exactly. Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what happened. We just kind of brushed it all out, and made it the bigger narrative, which I guess gets the majority of the views, and people are more interested in her. She's not that interesting. She's not. Just being honest with you. Lulu says, tell it Colby. Lulu, don't make me go off over here. Don't get me going over here. Lou says, you young men have a very strong support system, and my God, you're going to be amazing, fun father and husband. Thank you. Thank you. Sonia is up in Africa. Good morning. She wakes up for our lives, guys. She wakes up and sees that we're live. That's so crazy to think that people are waking up right now. You guys know I'm getting up there in age now. 28. Get tired early. Stuff wears you down, huh? Tanya says, I'd love to see you do a documentary yourself someday. That would be a great thing to do eventually. I would love that. I think that that's an important thing eventually, to tell the story the way it was initially supposed to be told. But, I have a lot of learning and things to do, but that would be a goal of mine one day, is to correct it and make it way different. It's supposed to be more of a love letter. And I think it was supposed to be more about the lessons and how to stand in those moments and how people around us are getting through it. It was supposed to feel like it was honoring, and it was a love story outside of just outside of that, you know, the Lori. The Lori story. Sick of that. I'm tired of it. Guys, 28 is getting older. Stop. Don't try to play me. I'm almost 30 and I'm accepting of it. I don't care. Age is just age. It's a number. And it's a beautiful thing to grow up, and it's a beautiful thing to be alive. So you have to be grateful for it. Getting up in age. I am. I'm getting tired. LOL, whopping 28, you old man. Feel like an old man sometimes. I'm telling you, I'm tired. I am tired. Age is just a number, ladies and gentlemen. It is not that important. It does not matter how old you are. We're all just people. You are a father of 3. You do. Yes. Father of 3. That's probably why I'm tired. But you guys know I love to hang out with you. You know I like to hang out with you. Mr. Awesome says you are in your prime. I appreciate that. I'm gonna try to take advantage of the prime. But if it's downhill from here, then that's not good. Because I'm already tired. If I'm gonna get more tired, just tell me now. Why do you think I like to drink Ghost, guys? I don't have one tonight. The funny thing is I drank the Ghost earlier tonight, so I'd be hyped up, and I made a mistake. I should have drank it while we were doing it to keep me going. But to be honest with you, it is, and you guys probably know this if you have gone through hard stuff. A lot of times talking about hard things does drain you, and it's okay. It's just reality. It's something I knew we were going to talk about. I prepared myself for it. I'm ready to talk to you guys about it. It feels like it's my choice for once. It's actually something that I'm willing to put out there rather than someone else pulling it out of me in an interview or crossing the line or showing up at the house or whatever the case is. I made the decision to tell you guys where I'm at and how I feel. That's what matters about this media, and that's what matters about what's going to be going forward. Is people should feel like it's their choice to talk about their life, their family story, their story, whatever the case is. It should be on you and your choice and your timing, not because someone else wants to make a story about it and then even wrongly use it. So you already know. Dina says, I am too old to climb the hill to downhill. Age is just a number. Live every day to the fullest and make the most out of every situation. The hard times make the happy times even more beautiful. Exactly, Stacy. Exactly. MB has been a member for 2 months. She says, cheers to being able to write your story and having the courage to do it. Well, you guys are helping me with that. We're here together. We're doing it together. I mean that. You guys are here for it. It's not like it's just me. It's like this is what it was always supposed to be. We've built a community that's walking this out all together. So I genuinely feel like you guys are part of it. Hence why I felt like we were going to do this live rather than we'll probably do the next episode live, to be honest with you. We'll do episode 3 breakdown live just so we can do what we did tonight, which is talk it out in person and not, just really genuinely talk about it. It's a lot easier this way. Jenny says, you are going to do amazing things and have only scratched the surface. It's a good thing you are 28, but like you said, age is a number, and at 37, I look up to you and the way you've learned to cope. Thank you, Jenny. I'll tell you one thing, guys. One thing I've ever asked God for in this situation is that something good can come out of it in this community, talking about this hard stuff, because when it happened, obviously you can never even ever fathom anything even decent coming out of it other than just pain for the rest of your life and life-changing circumstances. But having you guys say stuff like that and be here shows me that things can come out of this that are good. And that's crazy. And all I could ever want is that somehow positives are brought out of this, because it doesn't feel like a positive thing. You know what I mean? But we will be doing, let's just do this. We're going to plan to do episode 3 as well as a live. We'll do it together. We'll walk it out together. I appreciate you guys being here. Seriously, thank you. I know this was a very hard subject to talk about, but it was a lot easier and better live. It was better to have you guys here. We're all doing it together. We're walking it out together. And I cannot thank you guys enough. Thank you for being vulnerable with me and listening to what I have to say and giving me, even the strength and the encouragement as I'm doing it to continue to walk out the hard stuff. So I say this, I mean it. I love you, appreciate you. I'll let you know in the community tab when we're doing our next live, and we'll set it up for episode 3. We're going to conclude this thing. We got some new stuff going on. We're going to move forward in this. We're going to move forward in this. Jenny is a new member. Excited to have you, Jenny. Excited to have all of you guys. But I love you guys. Thank you. Again, let you know when we're going to do our next episode on our community tab. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for spending your night with me. Thank you for being a part of this journey. I appreciate you, love you, and I hope you guys are doing good. And I will see you guys soon.